Hello fans, I'm Kevin Piland and I want to thank you for watching and listening to this episode of The Kevin Piland Show. If you were watching my recent episode of The Kevin Piland Show, you may have noticed my friend Sean Hardesty, who was a guest on my show. We were talking about an incident where he was involved in a rollover incident, as well as someone who tried to put the blame on him. And I also mentioned on the show that Shauna Lake, the reporter over at KUTV, was arrested and charged with DUI. Well, she has since been back on the air and has since apologized for her incident. However, due to copyright considerations, I can't show that on my show, but I can tell you that she has apologized and I do forgive her. However, I'm also disappointed in her behavior. But she's not the first reporter I've ever heard about that's been arrested. In fact, Jane McGarry, who once worked at NBC5 in Dallas, was arrested herself. But she got a second chance at WFAA, which is the ABC affiliate in Dallas. And while I might not have seen her on TV since then, I'm sure she's embraced it. And if Jane McGarry can embrace her second chance, so can Shauna Lake. She was a reporter that I watched on KUTV's website from when I was watching the Matt Gephardt stories. And some of my favorites from when I was watching the Matt Gephardt stories were the ones where people would go through random stuff and they have to call him and he would investigate it. In fact, there was one guy who invited a camera crew to his house several years back, and he had to put a stop to a scam where a guy pretending to work for a company called Menus to Go, where he scammed businesses into thinking that there's going to be mailings in 100,000 homes, and then to find out it was a scam. But the company that owned it called them liars, but it turned out they weren't. But Matt Gephardt looked into it and stayed on it until the guy was caught. Sadly, the guy who was caught got away, but at least they knew what was going on afterwards. And that was one of my favorite stories. There was one guy who got a parking ticket for 15 minutes in the future, so to speak, because it was a parking meter type of ticket, if you will. And it was the oddest story I've ever seen within the last few years. And of course, I'm glad that they realized their mistake. The guy who wrote the ticket, his clock was 15 minutes fast, so that's what happened. But you know, it was something that I enjoyed and will continue to enjoy. And all I ask is that everyone please refrain from drinking and driving, as well as texting and driving, as I was talking to Sean about on my last episode of the show, as the driver was texting and driving. And then there was another driver who was driving without a license. That's also important. Yeah, you also have to make sure you have to have a license. Make sure you keep your license and don't lose it. And don't do anything stupid like Shauna Lake did when she was arrested for DUI. I want to thank you for watching this episode of The Kevin Piland Show and have a great afternoon.